phase 1, recording phase 2, recording 3. Wait, why can't I find this button? Yo,
show Charisse just how professional we are, Philip.
No, dude, this new Zoom update, bruh, like they've moved everything.
That's what I was complaining about, and you were busy. Hello, Dan, hello. And I was like, I don't know what to press.
Okay. Everything is everywhere all of a sudden. Anyway, guys, again, we're back. But before we get into it, Dan, let's start the show.
Are you ready?
Jump up in the club, everybody gather round. 2 broke Twimbos in the town. Listen close to the sound. I need that guy and feel charged. Baby, bringing the fun. With your podcast vibes, we not stop till the morning sun. Every episode got me laughing, can't control my smile. Talking about the latest news with their unique style. From Zimbabwe to the world, they spreading good vibes, keeping it real and entertaining. They're on the rise.
Hey.
2 broke Twimbos, bringing it to the floor. Everybody get guy and feel charged in control. Keep moving to the podcast flow. Oh yeah.
Here we know. Water them.
If you're wondering what you're just listening to, Charisse, you're listening to organic, original dancehall from the streets of Kingston, Jamaica that was recorded for this podcast. I mean, this has to go in your sets.
Out of 10. Do you dance like that every time?
Oh, we haven't even started.
Standard.
No, that's the soft
Standard.
intro. Let's get on to we've got 2 intros.
Okay.
Dan, are
See,
we?
that's our theme song. But now the intro. Charisse, Phil, are y'all
Good to go. Sound of the thing then.
Let me hear a drum play.
Water them. Season settle. The best podcast in the land coming through. Yeah, metal. This week we got a special guest on the urn, all the way from the UK. In fact, maybe she's
All
in
the
the
way.
UK. She been everywhere, man. She been in Ibiza. She been in Italy. She been Spain. She been in Joburg. She been in Cape Town. She been everywhere, man.
Right. Welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast. This is 2 Broke Twimbos. My name's Danny, that guy, aka Danos, the Mad Titan, aka Denford, Wegumaraini, aka Denimbi, my life, your entertainment, aka I'm done with these streets. Can we get an education for DJ audiences today? Aka Akuna Mumedi Danmo.
That's right. And see, only the unmistakable, the irrefutable. So you will not catch me outside of a Phil Chart, aka Flint Floss, the big boss, baby. Get Fidza P, aka Philon Musk, aka Sexington Lovu, aka Filthy Phil, aka DJ Mukarati, NFKS. Shamarie, the Tango Dringy.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of 2 Broke Twimbos. It's an extra special episode, as no doubt you will have seen from the title and the description. Charisse, do not be alarmed. This is just the way that we make sure the energy of the podcast is at the right level, right at the beginning. You know what I'm saying? And you can feel it. I can see you feel the energy. You know what I'm saying? I can see it. No. You got it. So, this is an extra special edition, all right? So it's not the usual. Today we've got a special guest. So we're gonna have an opportunity to speak to my DJ Chayo, my DJ Manyama, actual DJ doing their things. And let me
give a proper intro because
go for it.
This one actually, it hits me in the soul. I'm take you guys back in the days of the pandemic. We're locked down, things were tough. Some app with Clubhouse popped out. People were begging for invites like crackheads. You know what I mean? They were in your DMs like, yo, you got an invite for me? You got an invite for me? You know what I mean? And we had some industry rooms. And then some young intrepid lady was in there. She was like, yo, thirsting for knowledge, asking questions, like doing all the right things. You know what I mean? Just you could tell she was on her grind. And then lockdown ended, and then I don't like. It's like someone put a battery in her back with steroids. I've never seen someone work so hard so quickly, and I'm not exaggerating. In what 3 years, she's become probably one of the marquee brands, marquee names, marquee voices in the UK scene. She's managed to export her brand to other parts of Europe. This young lady, I remember there was a time I was also on holiday in Cape Town, actually, then. And I felt lazy. Because I'll be like, yo, what you doing today? She's like, no, I've got this gig here, I've got this gig here. All right, cool, I'll catch you tomorrow. Yo, are you doing it? No, I've got this gig here, I've got this gig here, I've got this gig here, I've got this gig here. She would find gigs while at a gig. There's one time I followed her to a club, and she's like, oh, man, dude, I got told to go to another club because I'm performing there now. So you might have to catch me there. You know what I mean? And this is while she's on holiday, my guy. On holiday. So
you don't even, you're even going far. You're even going far. She's an alumnus of Zimbabweans Doing It Big. I believe we first mentioned her a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, when it was announced that you were going to be at Glastonbury. And you know, we've been paying attention since. And you know what? I think it's safe to say that you know, Zimbabwe has talented DJs, and you're not strictly only Zimbabwean. You know, your roots trace back multiple places. In fact, I believe in some of the way you describe yourself as how you link different continents. But I think the Zimbabwean in you is what's really given you that, you know, that gene. You know what I'm saying? And Charisse C is who we have on the podcast today. And Charisse has she's done some things. If you want to check her out, like we mentioned, she's normally based in the UK, but she be all over the world. Check her out on BBC. Check her out on Boiler Room. Check her out on. She's fresh off releasing her EP. Her EP just 3 months ago. When did you release it? 3 months ago, right?
April.
Let me just
Yeah.
check. I hope I'm not lying. 3 months. Yes, 3. And welcome to the podcast, madame.
Thank you very much. That was, I think, probably the best podcast intro I've ever heard in my whole life. That was great.
at the podcast, do you hear that? You hear that?
Phil,
Keep
Add
your
the byline.
flimsy intros away. Keep your flimsy intros away.
endorsed by Charisse. Just add best podcast, then just ... I've ever heard in my life. So funny enough, in recent episodes, we've been talking a lot about DJs. So I'm glad that we actually get to speak to someone who's successfully
That's
applying
what
her
brought on-
skills as
To
an
be
international
fair,
DJ. Yeah.
like I've been overwhelmed with a few things, but she had hit me up about a project, and I've been trying to connect the dots, and then I finally managed to get ahead of a few things. I was like, "Yo, let's activate," and that was the perfect time. I don't know if you've been following the podcast, because obviously you're an avid listener of our podcast, Cherie. So I mean,
She just said it's the best podcast she's ever heard in her
we don't
life.
even have to explain. But
she
over
just
the
said
past
that,
few weeks, we've been having a discussion about DJs. And it's an ongoing Twitter discussion that we've also discussed on the podcast. And the general consensus amongst fans is DJs in Zimbabwe suck. And our
Wait,
rebuttal
Phil,
is-
wait. Before we even go there, Phil, niceties. Congratulations about Keir Starmer. Condolences?
It's neither here nor there. It's
That's-
neither a congratulations nor a condolence. It is the best of what we have.
I feel like that's what everyone has said about him. It's just like, no one ever says rice is my favorite meal. You know what I'm saying? But I suppose you got to eat it.
Yeah, he was the better out of another terrible option, basically. But yeah.
And the only other news out of the UK that I've been paying attention to recently was Glastonbury.
Mhm.
Did you attend this year?
I did. I was there this year. It was really, really great. Second time, really beautiful experience. I was able to play a stage that I remember I saw last year, and I thought, wow, it's called the Icon stage. It has incredible production. And when I found out that I was going to be playing it, I was really, really excited. It was a beautiful experience. And just I think this time the energy around it was a lot different. I think Glastonbury has been, getting a lot of feedback about the ways in which it needs to evolve. And there was just it had such a diverse programming this time around, more than previous years. And yeah, had a great time.
Nice.
Dope.
Nice. Okay, cool.
But, a bit of a detraction, but since you guys are the Zim diaspora, the queens right now, did you manage to catch Rachel's set?
I didn't. I actually didn't because, and I really wanted to catch her set, but the timings just didn't align.
No.
Well,
It's fair.
Next time we'll catch it together.
She's doing amazing. I saw her live, I think 2 years ago at a headline show that she did, and yeah, she hadn't released the album yet, but it's beautiful to see how far she's come.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, Philip, I had interrupted you. You were diving straight into business, but I was like, no, man, let's just some quick nice.
I totally lost my track of thought because you disturbed me there. No, I don't even know what I was trying to say. Thank you.
Allow me to remind you.
Mm-hmm.
Phil was saying that, over the past couple of weeks, we've been having a discussion on this podcast reviewing DJs from Zimbabwe. And some people say Zim DJs suck, which obviously is not true. There's some DJs who are amazing. But we were trying to delve into why is there this general training discussion about Zim DJs that's happening on social media. Phil and I attended a DJ festival a couple of weeks ago called Carpe Diem, which was well attended, and it was quite the vibe. And it also fueled some of these discussions that, very predictable, play the same music over and over. Then we spoke about audiences. So I think at this point it's just an opportunity for us to actually hear what the rest of the world is doing from someone who also kind of understands the Zim mindset a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Anyway.
Not necessarily. I think it'll be great to hear because this will be fun. Because Charisse wants to come DJ in Zim, and I was giving a little brief on it, and I was like, you are in for a fun time. It's going to be great. But yeah, I think let's start the conversation there. How have you found Zim audiences wherever you've DJ'd? How have you found them versus audiences from any other nationality or region?
Wait, have you DJ'd for Zim audiences?
She DJs in the UK and South Africa. Of course she has, Dan.
No, I mean like this is a Zim audience. You know what I'm saying?
I would say there's only been one time where I would say it so I've played Zim Fest. That was in 2021, which obviously is a festival dedicated specifically to Zimbabwe. But otherwise, in the diaspora, obviously I'm based in the UK, which is where I am most of the time. And especially with something like amapiano specifically, the people that make up the majority in the early days, not so much now, but in the early days, the people that made up the majority of those audiences were people from Southern Africa. So it'd be a lot of people from Zimbabwe, from South Africa, from Botswana, Swati people. And so it's kind of, I guess the way that we experience each other here is more of a collective identity, just because I'm not in Zim. So I think Zim Fest will probably be the only time that I can say this is a Zimbabwean audience. And it was great. I played an amapiano set, and obviously in the UK, amapiano is huge, especially amongst Zimbabwean people. So it was great. The music was received really well. I had a really great time. It was the first time both of my parents also came to see me perform. So yeah, it was great. And I haven't played in Zim yet. So yeah, I feel like that question is maybe I can answer that when I've actually played in Zimbabwe.
Dope. Tip number 1, when you come, bring your own controller.
Yeah,
Phil,
that.
Phil, why are you trashing your own country?
I'm not trashing, but this is a great discussion to have. Granted, we're going to be all over the show, but it's a good chat to have because I think a lot of DJs don't understand that, in Zim, C DJs understand it. And clubs don't provide you with controllers or CDJs. The only time they'll bring out CDJs is when an international comes in and it's part of their tech rider. So most DJs literally go from gig to gig with their controllers. So sometimes at a club night, you'll get to the DJ booth and there'll be 4 controllers like all piled up, and they will all be different. Like, because some guys are using RXs, some guys maybe they'll use CDJs. So, some guys are using novel. It's fun. It's an interesting experience. So yeah, I think, and that leads into the discussion we're having about Zim DJs, and these are the things I was highlighting. It's like people complain about Zim DJs, but hey, they don't understand how bad it is on the back end, because in my line of work, I'm helping these DJs get bookings. I'm working with the club owners, the promoters, festival organizers, etc. So I know what's being offered, right? I also know how much a full stack of CDJs, or if you're using a Mac, what the Serato box with the CDJ is going to cost you. You're going to be DJing for a very long time before you can even buy this equipment, let alone living expenses, rent, etc. So they'll always resort to the lowest common denominator, which is the stuff that is a quick hit for the crowd. And Dan was discussing how when South African DJs were at this festival, how they like build up the song, and Zim DJs were just going straight to the chorus and then moving on. And I was like, there's two reasons for that. One is the Zim audience has a very low attention span, so they don't understand that. And B is they can't afford to join DJ pool, so they're downloading these songs from YouTube. So they have no choice. Like, I'll give you one funny example, which always makes me laugh, is we're at a big festival, and then why am I forgetting the name? The song with Maporisa, Mpura, and Daliwonga, where Maporisa has that insane verse.
I know what you mean.
Doom, doom, doom.
The name's got in my head.
Anyway.
Yeah, I know.
You remember in the video, there's the break after Mpura's verse and the hook where he's driving the gusheshe, and you hear it in the video. We're at the festival, and the guy forgot that he had that verse. He just started.
Damn.
These
are the struggles we are dealing with down here. It's real out here, bro. It's real.
So okay, wait, Phil, hold on. Feel like you're really trashing our peoples over here. All right.
I'm giving an explanation of the situation on the ground. I'm not trashing. I'm explaining the situation on the ground.
I have a very loose mental flow of this conversation, right? Let me try. We'll let it obviously go whichever way we want, but like maybe let's just I would like Izolo. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Charisse, do you have like a place where you play regularly, a residency of some kind, apart from the festivals and the stuff that you play?
Not really. I move around a lot now. I'd say what would be a home for me would be my own event that I throw, and that's mainly here in London. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, like, I think, well, first of all, here in the UK, we don't really have like spots, like physical venues, so to speak. Like, we have parties, and it's more of an event culture that is then these people like take their event and they move it around to different spaces, because we don't have ownership over spaces like that. So there wouldn't be like your local here where you go and you're guaranteed a good time, or you're going to hear music that we enjoy. So you're relying on this collective, this community that throw events, and then wherever they are stationed is where we move to. So that means naturally as a DJ, you're more likely to move around a lot than to have like a fixed residency at a particular club or a particular place, unless that particular event has had some sort of partnership with the venue where they have a home there. But most people end up moving around quite a lot. And then I think where I'm at now, I've been playing a lot. I only play really in London when it's like a really significant show, or like a festival set, or my own event, just so that those moments where I do my own event are that more special, you know? So yeah.
Raise the price. I see you. No, I see you. I see you. I see. Okay, cool. So it helps me understand a little bit. Okay. I know your sound, at least judging from your EP, is like a house, Afro house vibes. Is that what you generally play wherever you play?
So I play, I'd say, a bit of a spectrum. So I play amapiano, I'll play house, drum as well. And then also just fusing it with the sort of dance music genres that I've grown up listening to here in the UK. but I won't necessarily play them. I'll find ways to connect those dots. But the base of the genres that I play would be, yeah. So in a set, maybe I'll start at amapiano. By the time I've finished, I'm like at the top end with gom. So a bit of a mix, I would say.
Okay. So
I
have you
think
ever
before we delve, oh sorry, Dad, I don't want to cut you off because
Yeah,
there's
go
a
ahead.
very interesting change that I want to delve into, but I don't want to rush into it because I want to get back to the beginning of all this and how you started your DJ journey. When did
You want me
start
to?
Yeah,
to-
well, the audience wants to
Okay.
know, like, when did you start DJing?
Yeah, I started DJing in 2017. So I was at uni. I grew up in a town like just outside of London called Reading. And it's like maybe like, I guess just the closest kind of small town to the capital city. And at that time, I knew I would always used to go to London from when I was like really young, like 15, 16, and kind of find my ways somehow, some way into the city to go to my favorite events and things like that. I think from then I knew that I wanted to go to uni there, but that would be the only way I'd probably be able to afford to move to live there. And then when I was there, I was doing music journalism. That's what I studied journalism and I started writing from then when I was about 15, 16. And then happened to stumble into DJing through some of my friends that were DJs. And I'd met a woman called Lauren Platt, and she'd been running a party called Work It in London. And she ended it probably about a decade in. At that time, maybe it was maybe about 7 years into the party. And she was kind of really integral to a lot of the scenes that formed in the city. And she'd also gone to my university. She was an alumni of the university I went to. And then she came together and she was like, yeah, I want to form this collective to help students bridge that gap between being in school and then actually being in the real life of like the creative world. Because sometimes there was a bit of like a gap, like you're learning all the theory and all of this stuff, but then the actual experience of then networking and meeting people and getting into the right places is another thing once you've done the education part. So we were kind of, then she was taking us around, we were getting this real life experience. And then, yeah, I just started DJing and I really liked it. I really liked it as another way to share music with people and where I found journalism was kind of becoming a bit restrictive at times. I was starting to fall out of love with it. And I found freedom in being able to share music with people as a DJ. And I pretty much just ran with it from there. I just didn't stop.
All right. So around that time, like when I started seeing you pop up in clubhouse rooms, were you still in uni or you had now started DJing?
I'd now finished, yeah. So I graduated from uni in 2018. So by then, Clubhouse had been 2020. So I was 2 years out of uni.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And so through that time, like from university, had you just started DJing full time? Were there anything you're doing in between? How are you paying the bills?
So right before lockdown happened, which would have been which was what, March 2020. That was like I was just about to have kind of my moment and then everything just like stopped basically because I'd been DJing and things were moving. So this was now by 2020, this was 3 years into me being a DJ and things were moving really, really well. But outside of that, I'd been doing obviously the journalism. I'd worked as a consultant. I was doing research for like brands. And then I was working for my local council where I was living in South London, an area called Catford. And they were kind of going through a process of regeneration and changing the area. And which has been a big thing for a long time, where what happens with a lot of those situations is that they outprice the original communities that lived in those spaces. So working class communities, Black communities, ethnic minorities end up getting priced out of the places that we've made our homes. And then they'll build like really expensive high-rise towers, luxury apartments, bring in boutiques, all of these type of things that kind of the type of London that people imagine, but is not the reality for a lot of people who actually live in London. So I'd been writing about that previously, and then I ended up using music and storytelling as a way to connect with the people in the community and basically allow our voices to be heard in the context of what was happening. And then I got hired by the council to basically do that consultation. So over the years, I'd say I've done a lot of different things. But at the core of it was always music running, but there's been many side missions along the way. And then I was planning to leave that job to really focus on music and just figure out where I wanted to take this DJing thing. And then, yeah, they were like, well, we're about to have a global pandemic and be locked down. And I literally prepared myself. I was like, cool, I'm going to quit. I've got like 5 months of savings. Like I've got 5 months to like figure out whatever I'm going to figure out in this time. And if not, I'll like go back to my job and working. And then I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't quit because, you know, we're about to go into a lockdown. Maybe it's not smart to leave your job. You don't know how this is going to go. But I did it anyway. And then, yeah, a lot of things and everything just shut down. Everything stopped. There was nothing happening. But that did give me an opportunity to then pivot and start other things. So that's when I started my radio show, which then became the event, which then became the record label, which I'm sure we'll get into. But it just forced me to kind of really think about, you know, as a person working in music, if I'm not gigging, what else am I doing? And a lot came out of that. And by the time I came out of lockdown, it was like I just kind of was able to shoot off from 2 years of work that I'd been doing purely on my music. So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, you know, hearing your stories makes us feel I must also just quit my job and just you know what I'm saying? Like anyway, when I was asking earlier about you with like which type of genre, which kind of music do you play? Did you go through a phase where you were a more variety type of music, played different mix of genres and so on, and then you started honing in on what your favorites were?
Exactly that. When I first started, I was playing absolutely anything and everything that I liked. Like, I could play hip hop, Afro beats, R&B, house, like that kind of soul election type vibe. I was really deep into SoundCloud at that time, so that kind of future beats, edit, soul election type of vibe. K Tronada and like Sango were really big then. Well, still are really big, but like that was the moment where that was kind of being birthed. So I played literally everything. And again, London was a city that lended itself to that. There are a lot of DJs that I admired and respected that had this kind of open format way of connecting multiple sounds and genres. And then over time, I think for me, I just wanted there to be more of a direction. I think because I DJ less as an entertainer. Well, it is for about entertainment, but it is an art form for me also, and a way of me telling a story. And I always think about things from that perspective of a storyteller, because that's where everything started for me. And I just kind of felt like it was just becoming a bit all over the place, even the type of bookings that I was getting, because there wasn't a concept around even the idea of the open formatness. So even when I mentioned something like Soulection, they play multiple genres, but there's an identity within the music that you can pick up and recognize. Mm-hmm. And that identity is what allows you to grow as a DJ and move from being a resident in a club that just plays to appease whatever people want to hear, to being somebody that has a career for having a real iconic taste and being a tastemaker. Mm. So I was like, cool, what do I have to say or share that I feel like is really distinct and unique to me? And then at that time, I'd started DJing for house gospel choir. And they're a choir that literally do like gospel renditions of house songs. And they used to do these Sunday brunches in this hotel, and they would like perform for people that were like eating whatever. And then they needed a DJ to play in the intermissions. So I came and I would play, and that was a big education for me, because growing up, like I wasn't partying to like house music really. So the kind of, and I'm also like, I'm 27. So at that time I was like, how old was I? Maybe like in my early teens. So that wasn't what was my music education. So a lot of the like house classics and things like that, I was learning through like being with them in rehearsals, but then I was incorporating Afro house and amapiano into the intermission. So that was like the bridge that was connecting the dots. And I really enjoyed that. And then kind of just started focusing a lot more on dance music from there. And then at that time, amapiano was yet to become what it is now. But I was really enjoying it because I also felt like within itself as a genre, it was just a hybrid of so many different sounds and worlds, which I really just relate to as a person. So I began playing that a lot more. And then it really just continued. Everything that I've done so far has been continuing on that path. So it's like the house music, dance music that is intrinsic to the West and where I've grown up, but how do I incorporate like my cultural heritage into that and make those worlds merge?
All right. So I think two things. I think the first thing is, so you said when you started DJing, you were, you didn't have a defined sound. Or no, rather, let's go back. What music were you listening to growing up?
Everything. Everything, honestly, genuinely. I don't say that as like a cop-out answer. So like, okay, if I say at home, my mom is big on gospel. So it was a lot of like Lundi, Rebecca Malope, a lot of South African gospels that my mom is really big on. And if not that, she loves R&B. My mom's really soulful. She loves Whitney Houston and really kind of soft and soulful music is my mom. My dad is a very eclectic music listener. So he would play everything and anything and very much was someone that would play music in the car. So in the car, we would be listening to everything from like Kwaito to Oliver Mtukudzi to reggae. He was big on like reggae and Barrington Levy. Would be playing like Pitch Black Afro or whatever it is. He played R&B. Like my dad was a big Joe fan. So pretty much everything and anything at home in that sense, mostly from my dad. And then at school, like I was listening to everything that was popular and charting for someone that is growing up in the UK. So, you know, that was very broad. I remember there was a time when Afrobeat was becoming really big. I was in high school. So we were listening to that. We were listening to grime. We were listening to hip hop, to pop, to rock. I moved around a lot in the UK. Sometimes I like lived in areas that were quite white. And then I moved into areas where like my secondary school was really multicultural. So my experience of like life and music has literally been everywhere because I've moved around a lot and been exposed to so many different types of people. So people are sometimes surprised by the music that I enjoy. But I just have been immersed in so much.
It sounds like she's into like death metal and...
No, okay, not that far. I did go to one death metal party when I was in secondary school because my school was like a business and enterprise school. And they used to allow us to like throw like events and do fundraisers and raise money after school. And there was a group of kids that were really into like heavy metal rock. And so they one day said that they wanted to do one. I remember I had the shock of my life because I'd never seen anything like that before. Like, and it was in the school hall and they were throwing chairs. And like, we were like, I don't know how we were allowed to do this because there was definitely some health and safety things there. But yeah, no, I knew that day. I was like, yeah, no, this part isn't for me.
Gotcha.
For me.
So I was asking that because you touched on something earlier, and I think it's a really important discussion, especially for not only fans but also DJs in this part of the world, which is like the open format thing. Selfishly on my side, the reason why it strikes a nerve is in Zim, especially because of everything we've discussed earlier, DJs are kind of forced to become open format DJs where you have to play almost everything because there's no specialty sets outside of like headline acts that are flown in. And the double-edged sword is it guarantees you bookings in Zim. But when I'm speaking to booking agents outside of Zim and you're like, okay, what type of DJ is he? And you say open format, they're like, okay, we don't throw open format parties. We don't have open format events. How were you able to switch from open format and drill down to a niche? And why the niche that you chose?
Yeah. I think it's one thing I really believe in is if you're able to, is saying no to stuff that doesn't align with where you want to be. I think I had very clear examples of DJs who I admire and like, these are the type of places I want to be playing. And I knew that the music that I was playing at that time was not yet existing in those spaces. But what I understood was the model that they worked with. So it's like, how do I apply this business model and this way of navigating the music industry, but with what I play, and break that into the space. Because I was like, again, that's going to be the thing that only I'm doing there. Using everything that I'm learning and observing from, you know, the DJs that I like, love and respect. So that's what I was saying. Even, for example, like, I feel like to be an open format DJ and be booked as like a DJ who is like a specialist DJ, that's the point where I was saying there has to be a real clear identity and story around what you like. So why I use Soul Election as an example is like, okay, cool, we're open format, but we are future beats. We have these type of producers that we've defined a whole genre and culture and a way of moving, and it's like a whole lifestyle within itself that when you hear it, you can't even necessarily pinpoint what genre it is. It's about fluidity. It's about this. So like, that's what you do. You almost have to define culture in some way. And that comes with aligning yourself with what makes sense and saying no to what doesn't. But then it's like, if it's your bread and butter and there aren't the options to say no, then it's not easy to say no. So I'm aware of that too. But I think for me, it was just at that time, because I wasn't only DJing, I was still writing, I was still doing a lot of things. I could pivot and actually be like, I don't want to do this stuff anymore. I don't want to play at these type of places anymore. I want to figure out how to play there. So I would literally email places, I would record mixes that I felt like would fit at the type of club that I wanted to play, and email and be like, hey, I've had this mix, I've played at this place before, I would really love to play here. I don't think you've ever had a sound like this here. Sometimes they would respond, sometimes they wouldn't. I play it, it will go well. Cool, we'll have you come back, you do it again. And just keep leveraging that over and over again until eventually I'm in the faces of the people and the type of bookers that I wanted to be in front of. So I'd say that's how the pivot happened for me. And I also was fortunate that I was playing something, like I was growing, because I became, I guess, popular through amapiano. We were growing together. So I had the privilege of being at the forefront of something here in the UK. So it's like people are interested in the sound, and I've been playing the sound. So I have an advantage in that sense, that I'm introducing something to people that they want to hear. So I can also leverage that to my advantage and say no to things that don't make sense and say yes to things that do. So I guess it's a mix of alignment and timing, really.
You were prescient, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Forethought, foreknowledge, you know what I'm saying? Nostradamus. I will say, I think in general, obviously every journey is different and everyone has a different sort of path that they'll tread to get to where they are. So there's nothing set in stone. But I do think in general, starting off open format is a good thing. Because I think, I don't know, I think it takes away constraints, and you're able to see different reactions and different audiences and different ways music connect, and it helps you build that knowledge. Little known fact, when I first got on radio, I decided I was going to be a DJ. So I started trying to get like gigs and spots and whatever, and I even had a couple of places that I played regularly. And then after 6 months to a year of doing it, I was teaching myself and watching YouTube videos, and I'd be at home just like making practice mixes and whatever. And then at some point, I figured, you know what? I think I want to specialize. I think I don't want to be an open format DJ anymore. And I feel like it's a natural progression that I hope many DJs sort of come to, that, yes, open format, we get it. You do weddings and in a pinch, you can come to, if there's no one available, you can be called to the club or whatever. But at some point, you're going to want to build a brand. You're going to want to build an identity and so on. So I started thinking, and I wanted to play, the place I wanted to start was like lounge house music. And then I did it for a while, and then I eventually lost interest and started pursuing other things. But my point is, I think I understand the pressures, especially of Zim, where we don't have as many events or as many scenes and places where you can sort of build that brand. But in general, I think you should. I think you should. And there have been examples of people here who have specialized and have found some level of success, even in the smaller market that we have here. And far better if you're able to like expand your craft elsewhere. you were playing house music and then started playing amapiano as it started blowing up, right? I'm keen to know, did you feel like there was was amapiano just a sound that people loved, or was there like an inflection point, or like a point where everything just like damn, this music that's been here for a while has all of a sudden become this big thing? Because I've wondered that question. Like, was it the moment people heard amapiano, they were like, damn, this is special, I love it? Or was there some kind of inflection point that happened that made people start paying attention?
I'd say lockdown was definitely the inflection point. It was the like amapiano as a genre was working really, really hard at a time where people had nothing else to do but to listen. Like, we weren't going anywhere, we weren't out, we weren't seeing anything. We were all on our phones. People were doing mixes every single week, every other day, dropping music in the studio back to back. Like, the videos were going viral of people dancing or people listening to the music. Like, I don't think there was another genre that was moving as rapidly in that time where we were idle, like as much as amapiano was. So it was just, again, timing worked really, really well for the genre because, well, I guess let's say in its birthplace in South Africa, it'd been around for much, much longer, and it took a while for it to even get to be able to play on the radio. Like, people weren't trying to hear it like that. And at that time, it hadn't, evolved into having like the kind of pop versions of it, or the kind of more jazzy versions, or things that are more easy on the ear that people would play on radio, or having vocalists on it, or just refining it in the ways that there's so many ways that it exists now. So, and then by the time we came to lockdown, it had several evolutions. There were hip hop artists that were making amapiano. There were singers that were making amapiano. There were people who were previously Afro house producers now making amapiano. So it meant that, okay, so there's several touch points for different types of music listeners to enjoy this sound at a time where there's now just like a vastness of it that's being produced. And I think it's joyful too. And I think for a lot, like, it was a difficult time for so many of us. So things that made us happy were the things that we were tapping into, things that brought us together. So by the time now we were free, it's like, so there was this like 2 whole years of like a huge catalog of music being released that we've never heard in real life. Like, well, unless you were going to the parties that you weren't supposed to be going to. But otherwise, like, you'd only heard this at home, right? So it's like, now we come out and it's like, I want to hear this on big speakers. I want to dance with my friends to this song. I want to sit outside. I want to have a braai. I want to feel this in all the ways that I wasn't able to feel it when I was at home and I was enjoying it and having these Zoom parties with my friends or whatever was going on. So I think that was really the catalyst for it to then become everything that it became as soon as we came out of lockdown. And when I say that me and the genre grew together, because I'd been playing it pre-lockdown, and then, like I said, we were now shut down at home. So then I started the radio show. And I went back to my journalism bag and was like, cool, what I'll do in this time is try and document the stories and the movement and what's happening and archive this happening right now and speak to the artists and do interviews and like have guest mixes and kind of start to build this infrastructure around it, where I felt like growing up in the UK, when you think about like Afrobeats, like I said, I saw it go from like, this thing that belonged to like West African people to something that was like popular culture. And I watched that trajectory happen. So I knew, in some of the ways, what the importance of contextualizing things for people to understand them and be able to receive them. Because when you're here, it's like, I have my like Caribbean friends and I understand sound system culture. You can understand patois, it's part of our slang. My Ghanaian friends, my Nigerian friends. But when it came to the southern region of Africa, we didn't have like a popular cultural touch point like that. And so people really didn't know, like, well, okay, oh, damn, this is what you guys eat, or this is what you guys say, or okay, there's Zim, and then there's South Africa, and then there's so and so. Oh, okay. So now there's these touch points to have these type of conversations, and I wanted to create this hub for them. So it meant for me as well, by the time we came out of lockdown, it's like, okay, cool. This girl's been spending the last 2 years documenting this thing that we all want to hear. And now I can actually play it out loud to people who want to hear it. So yeah, lockdown.
Very cool.
All right.
making lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah.
So hear me, Zimbabwean DJs. I get, obviously, there's always going to be open format, generic variety style DJs. They're always going to be there. But I think you absolutely have to specialize if you want to start building a brand. In my opinion, I don't think it's possible to not do that. So
I think
here's
it's
the
also
example
about sorry to cut you.
Yeah.
Having a world view on
Yes.
things, right? Like, and immersing yourself in, if you can experience, we have the ability to experience things in other parts of the world without going there with the internet. You can literally find a documentary on YouTube about why this culture exists, how it's moved. You can listen to mixes of something in Brazil, something in here, and that helps you think about how you innovate your reality to become something that can grow in that way. And I think that's something that is missing a lot of the time. Like, how do you create something when you have nothing? And unfortunately, maybe in a context where it's like, okay, if I don't have the spaces around me, because I see people that are innovating in Zimbabwe, like online, that are creating culture, creating these movements. And what happens is when you have something that is really authentic to you, but is able to be informed by this worldview and perspective, it can be something that is rooted in your local identity, but can connect with people everywhere and anywhere, because there are so many things that are intersections that we relate to amongst one another, even if, we're from different places. And because I see it even here, like within communities, so let's say like Zimbabwean communities that are here in the UK, there's like, even sometimes like, and it's a thing that exists in South Africa as well, probably everywhere in the world, where it's like wanting to be the king or the queen of this part of the world here. And it means like it's fostering this echo chamber where there's a lot of repetition of the same thing and fear of breaking out of it and trying something else. Because I feel like most people that are willing to take that risk and jump and try something else will end up somewhere else. But everyone keeps doing the same thing, you probably will stay in the same place. Yeah. So I think, it's like having a world view on things and being willing to take risks and try stuff. And I think from my outside perspective looking in, I would imagine what makes it harder for Zimbabwean DJs is, and let's say, for example, people always talk about in the context of people say that hip hop DJs in South Africa are terrible. And the reason why they say that is because everyone's still playing like All I Do Is Win and songs from back in whatever and haven't moved past that. And then it's like, okay, well, why aren't you guys playing South African hip hop? Why aren't you guys playing whatever? And then others say, well, who's making the music that's popping in the club? Like, you want me to play these songs, but it's not going to make people move. It's not going to make people dance. And even here, it's been a conversation that's happening a lot where we had like genres like grime, Afro swing, probably drill is the most predominant one now. But UK music this summer in particular, we're not listening to UK music in the club. Like, it's a lot of American music. Amapiano is huge. Afrobeats is huge. But like UK rap and stuff is not doing too great in the clubs right now. But because the music's not there, it's not moving people. And so how do you create the music for the DJs to play? How do you innovate the sounds and the cultures for the because DJs in some ways are facilitators. Unless you're a producer, you work with what exists. If you don't have the material, what can you do? Like, you just have to play what everybody wants to hear, which becomes the same thing over and over again, I think.
Actually, so this is we've now arrived to the meat and potatoes of our discussion here. You know what I'm saying?
There's so much stuff we need to double back to, actually, but yeah, let's go.
Here you are, Charisse, and you're playing amapiano to an audience that's beginning to start getting excited about this genre. Obviously, you're playing songs they've never heard before. Did you find that the audience enjoyed hearing new sounds, or did you find that it was difficult to balance the idea of playing their favorites or the things that they know versus introducing new sounds? And I think you've also mentioned it as well, like what's going to make people dance? What do they want to hear? Did you find that audiences wanted to hear things they'd never heard before?
I think it's a constant juggling act. Because the more I started to break away from the spaces that I knew, so there's the spaces that that these are amapiano fans.
Yeah.
But and like again, I've had this vision of who are my favorite DJs and where do I want to play. And there are not like amapiano fans. Those are people that listen to a whole bunch of things. So whether I'm like now going to play in the type of like future beats, future sounds type like places I'm talking about here, or more recently, I've really been moving into like I want to play in dance music spaces and electronic dance music spaces. So I spent like probably the whole of last year and this year, it's like playing on techno lineups, playing on drum and bass, jungle, like house, garage type of lineups where, okay, technically we're in a similar sphere here in terms of its dance music. It's like, derivative of house, but still, this is quite foreign to people. One huge point of difference is like with amapiano specifically, it's much slower. Whereas you find something like drum, because it's faster and has that more like ravey type of thing, it's easier to integrate that or to make people understand it. And then things like Afrotech and Afro House, I think, have a much easier job of integrating. But then I've just always felt like, well, that's my job as the DJ, as the specialist. If I'm saying that I'm here to bring this here and this is my USP, then I've got to figure out how do I make this make sense to you. And I've grown up listening to this music. I've partied, and some of the spaces, to be honest, I'll go play in places that I've never even set foot in my life. And some of them have been really difficult sets because I'm new to the space, the audience is new to me, and the music I'm playing is new to them. And you figure it out. Sometimes I fail and I learn from that. I know what I need to do next time. Sometimes I figure out how to finesse it because I always try to go to things early so I can hear what's happening around me and try and gauge like, and because I play such a like vast range of music and even something like amapiano is so broad in how it sounds, I try to use my ear to gauge like how can I sonically connect these dots. So if these people are used to a soundscape that's darker and techier, okay, cool. I can pivot more into this kind of space. All right, okay, cool. This like soundscape is a bit more jazzy and soulful. Okay, cool. I know how to do what I do, but do it in a way that makes sense here. And I think that's really the job of a DJ, and especially a specialist DJ. And when you start to separate yourself from being just an entertainer that plays what people want, but being somebody that really knows how to work a crowd, how to read a room, how to move people. And that requires a lot of empathy. And just, I think, a lot of paying attention and really loving music. Like you have to really, really, really love it. And I find, especially now because DJing is such a cool thing to do, there's a lot of younger DJs that are coming through without that educational way of thinking. And that sometimes then creates a culture of like repetition. So yeah, I feel like maybe I'm going around in a tangent now, but yeah, I think that's the job. That's what you have to figure out how to do it, especially when you're breaking something that people are new to you. There's no blueprint for it. So you have to create the blueprint.
No, fair. There's so many places you went. I need to double back. I think we have to go back to the radio show, and then we'll get back to what it was like outside. So, touch on what started the radio show, what it was about, and how you distributed it. Like, where did that idea even come from?
So I wasn't even thinking about doing radio really. But one of my friends, Jojo, he started a black radio station called No Signal. And it became popular because, he's been doing parties, has been doing parties in London for years. And one of the biggest black events in the UK called Recess. And that was like very, very much like, again, open format vibes. Like you listen to everything, dancehall, R&B, hip hop, whatever you would enjoy there. And then he created a branch of it called No Signal, where he wanted to kind of specialize on specific cultures, go a little bit more niche, give the DJ spaces where we could have a bit more fun with it. Then again, lockdown. So then they started doing this thing called 10v10.
Yeah,
and so
I remember those. Before Versus, they were we'd have the Sundays. Sundays, it was No Signal battles. I remember those.
Exactly. So they were doing the No Signal battles, and then it just shot up, became this huge thing. And then it was like, damn, okay, now we have a radio station. And he was like, yo, Charisse, do you want to do a guest mix? I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I wasn't doing anything else, so did a guest mix. And then people really liked it. And then he was like, actually, do you want to do a radio show? So I was like, radio show? I've never even thought about doing a radio show or what I would do with a radio show or how I want to do it. So I was like, I'm down, but let me just think about it for a sec. And he was like, like, I think you're overthinking it. You can literally just do an hour mix every other week. Cool. And we just the same thing that you did for the guest mix. And I was like, I want to do something more than that. So I was like, let me just think about it and I'm going to propose something to you. So I sat with it and then again went back to my whole like storytelling thing. And I was like, what do I want to say? That's always been my thing. If there's going to be people have time and they're going to listen to me, and this might be the first time I'm introduced to them, and I had the time to put into doing like a production of it. So I was like, actually, I want to do a radio show and I want it to be for Aspires. And I want it to like combine the mixing, but also go back to my kind of journalism and tell these stories. And I decided to call it Abantu. And yeah, so I did the first episode. I think the first guest I had might have been, I think either Lady Do or Devon Goga. I don't remember.
Starting small, huh? Starting small. Nice. You know,
Baby
so
steps.
I was like,
Baby steps. Yeah.
It was, there was time. People had time. They were at home. So I just literally would reach out to people like, hey, I'm doing this radio show. Do you want to do a mix? Like, and I think everybody who was in music was eager. And I loved that energy a little bit. And I remember then everyone was talking about like care and community and building, which as soon as we came out, it just went back to the regular programming. But at that time, that connectivity was all we had. So like people had time and weren't like on the road doing shows. So we're able to respond to you and say, yeah, sure, I'll hop on the thing. We'll do it on Zoom. So yeah, it just started off on a really great foot, basically. It just kept growing from there. And then I was incorporating, like I had my parents on and we had a conversation, and then it moved into kind of a bit of a podcast because some of the conversations I was having were like 2 hours long and I only had a 30-minute segment for the talk part. So I was like, what am I going to do with the rest of this like conversation that we've had? Let me just put it out anyway. So that's how the radio thing started.
Oh, nice. So is it still ongoing, or did you have to put the brakes on that?
I had to put a brakes on it. Once now I was like back to like gigging and stuff. It just wasn't, I was struggling because I was recording, writing, editing, doing the graphic design, everything like all by myself. And it was 2 hours, 4 hours a month, basically. And then ended up almost being 8 hours a month because then I was doing the podcast in between the radio. And I just couldn't, I felt like I was putting so much into it that I was struggling to juggle it with everything. Because I'd also started a teaching course during the lockdown, which I ended up dropping out of because I couldn't finish it by the time I came out. So I was doing this teaching course, then DJing, then trying to do the radio show. And then I just felt like the quality of what was being created was so rich, but it was living on SoundCloud where a lot of people were listening, but I just felt like this thing can go for the amount that I'm putting into it. Like, I feel like I would love to create a format that is more accessible to a wider range of people, because for a lot of the people that I was interviewing was their first time they'd ever done an international interview or ever done a radio interview. And so a lot of the archive is still there, but a lot of that stuff was literally the early stages of what amapiano was becoming. And I'm like, this is literally history. This is an archive. This needs to be more than what it is. So I was like, let me pause and regroup, because the quality was starting to go down now because I was struggling to keep up with it. And I was like, if I'm now putting out things that aren't as good as what I was putting out before, I should probably stop. So I stopped, and we still haven't restarted yet.
No,
hopefully soon. Yeah.
Longevity in podcasting is not for everyone. It's what can I say? I mean, you tried your best, but here we are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How long do you think our podcast has been going? Let's just find out. How long do you think we've been podcasting, Charisse?
Phil, she's an avid listener. She knows.
How long has it been?
Throw it. Just guess. Just guess. Like, you see the success, you see the numbers, you see the studio, you know what I mean? You see the quality, you know what I mean? Obviously,
You
pre-lockdown?
that's You know,
that's not a number.
it's true.
That's not a number. That's just a phase.
Oh, but I'm trying to get a gauge.
No.
That's
I'm not giving you
technically
hints.
true.
What is this? This ain't 3 clues. You ain't gonna know lifelines over here.
Yeah. I don't know. It could be anything. I don't have a gauge.
We just crossed 10 years.
Wow.
And look at all we have to show for it.
I was thinking about that the other day, Phil.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I don't know if we can be proud of that.
No, we have to be. Dan, we have to be the leaders. You know what I mean?
Still being here and consistent, that's definitely something to be proud of. Like showing up every time consistently, it's not easy. So I would say that definitely is something to be proud of.
Definitely. Yeah,
Look, we took a just under 2-year break in that 10-year period. So, maybe that's what you're in at the moment. Come join us. Join us, my sister. Come back to the world of podcasting. It's not stressful at all. It's great. No problems over here.
Yeah.
Everything's amazing.
So I think the other thing I wanted to touch on, which you mentioned, but I think as a fan of amapiano, especially, I obviously wouldn't classify myself. What's the word? A deep Janos head. I was onto the Janos and I was vibing to it before. I had the benefit of going to a couple of events, especially like once you go to Pretoria and experience Janos in Pretoria, like it's a whole new world, you know. And then the pandemic happened, started coming across more and more DJs, and you forget what it's like to hear log drum on massive monitors, you know that. What was that feeling like when you first got to hear Janos in the club at a venue and you're like, oh snap, this is not my bedroom anymore?
Intoxicating. Like we were outside, and also because partway through during the like 2-year period, there was a period where we were free and before we went back in. And in that period, I'd gone, I think that was in 2021 to South Africa that December. And then they were saying we might close up again. And it was me and 2 of my friends who were like, we're going, we'll figure it out. If we don't make it back, we don't make it back. We end up staying there. We were like, well, we're not doing is staying here. So we flew when the gates were open, and then lo and behold, they did close whilst we were there. But it was then just moving from that, like having had that little bit of the experience of partying here in the UK, and then going straight to South Africa where again, like you can't replicate that energy, but even more so like the culture of groove after people have been locked up for however long. It was just, I don't even know how to describe how that felt. Like we were groove crazy for I always loved partying, but I was partying a lot then. And just, like when I hear the songs that were like playing at that time, there's just this feeling, this like nostalgic feeling and this like sheer joy that I feel when I hear them, because that's what it felt like at that time. It was like, this is freedom. Like if we could encapsulate freedom and put it in a bottle, this is what it feels like right now.
Okay. I think obviously
bars
without reducing you to just a groover, you are very good at networking. So how are you handling that? And what was it like? Like what are those introductory conversations like while you're in that first trip and you're going out, you're meeting people and securing these bookings and relationships and connections? What was the process? What was that like?
Yeah. I think I actually wouldn't say I'm good at networking. I'm a good journalist. I like talking to people, but I can be really awkward and I don't say things unless I actually have something to say. Like I could meet someone and really want to talk to them, but if I don't feel like I have something to say to them, I will not say a word. And because I can be really shy too. But I think my show that was my thing. That was my baby. That was my vessel. That was my vehicle. And everything that I set out for it to do, it did for me. And which is why I called it Abantu, I called it people, because I was like, this is going to be the thing that connects those dots and starts those conversations. And so initially, like I'd spent 2 years talking to people online, some that I'd met in real life, some that I'd never met in real life. And so now I was in SA, it was like, we can actually meet in real life now because we spoke for an hour, 2 hours on my radio show and then I've remained in contact. And then now it's like, it feels like we've already met before, even though we haven't, because all of us were not meeting anybody for like 2 years. So a lot of it wasn't really necessarily like outright networking in that way. It was just building on relationships that had already started over time. And then to be like, hey, like I saw you're playing, I want to come to your show, like, and going and supporting their show because I'd been playing their music in my shows. And then it's like, oh, okay, you've been DJing, you've been playing my music in your thing. Oh, can you send me music? So it was really just continuing with like rapport and relationships that built over something that we shared in common. And then obviously being like, yeah, like I also want to play, like I want to, I'm figuring out the landscape in terms of like DJing wise because it's different to here in the UK. And so it's like also absorbing and soaking up and going on the road with people. I'd say one person like Debun Gogo, I went on the road with her a lot and really learned a lot from her and just kind of observing. We would go to Hammanskraal and then end up back in Soweto and then back in Midrand and like be up and down with her like day to day, back to back. And so that really opened my eyes up a lot. And yeah, it was just really being outside and enjoying people's company, honestly, like to begin with. It wasn't like there was no like strategy about it, if that makes sense.
But I think also, especially in the entertainment industry where it's more of a passion than a career decision, I think being intentional even about like what you're passionate about, what you're trying to do, it benefits in a way that people don't necessarily realize at the time. But looking back at it, you'll be like, oh yeah, but actually I did set myself up because I cared enough to do A, B, C, D, E, and it worked for me. So even when you, like you said, you were Debun Gogo, like were you literally just following her while she was performing? Were you helping her out? Were you like the assistant stage manager? Were you the bouncer? What were you doing?
Yeah. No, it was literally just part of the tour bus. So one of the earlier interviews, well, I mean, first of all, she was one of the first people that I interviewed for my radio show. So I had hit her up. And I was like, hey, I'm doing the show. I'd love to interview you. I think I might have gone to her manager. I don't remember. But then she was one of the people that was like, yeah, and we spoke on Zoom. And like she's incredible. Like I'd always like admired her as a DJ and just respected and still do respect everything that she represents and everything that she's done. She's a trailblazer. And one of her closest childhood friends, Cook Sister, which I didn't know at the time, I'd been playing Cook Sister's music on my radio show. And then she sent me a message because she was moving from South Africa to the UK during that lockdown to come and do her master's. And she was like, hey, my name is Cook Sister. I've seen you've been playing my music. I would really love to meet when I come that side. Like, I'm going to be staying here. I'd love to connect. I'm like, trying to like forming a friendship basically. So I was like, I mean, yeah, sure, dope. Like, let me know when you're around. So when she first came, she was in quarantine. Then we linked up and just really hit it off. And then I later found out that then Debun Gogo had said to her, there's this girl called Charisse that I spoke to that's based in the UK. I think you should message her. And I happened to have been playing her music at the same time as well. So we then literally became like yin and yang, me and Cook Sister, and we then formed the Ascension together and began performing together and making music together. And she really is a big sister to me. So that kind of just formed this bond because then we went to South Africa together in that 2021 period where I say we were all just like, if you don't make it back, we don't make it back. She was the friend, one of them that I was talking about that we went with. So then, yeah, we were just on the road together, really. One thing about Debun Gogo, she has she's a real matriarch. She's really maternal and she brings people with her. She builds community. And so people love to go on the road with her and it's always a good time. So yeah, we was just part of the tour bus.
Nice. All right. The label. You touched on it. Or do we go back to the Ascension? Well, in fact let's not leave that. So let's talk about Kulula. How did that, based on everything you've just mentioned, I think we got a rough idea. But what is it like now having not you guys are friends, and then how you go from like friends who just hang around to be like, actually let's form a duo as performing artists. Let's drop this song and video. Let's drop this project. How did that come about, and what did you learn from that?
So the music thing happened at the same time as our friendship. I feel like we both feel like it was divine. And we're both kind of very spiritually inclined in that way. And so when she had come one for the masters, but also for her music career. And I was coming out of lockdown, I had been offered the first boiler room that I did. I'd received that email. And again, as always, I think this is the pattern with everything that I've said. Whenever there's an opportunity that's come, it's always, how can I do this in a way that's memorable? How can I do this in a way that's distinct? And so again, I was like, boiler room is huge for any DJ. And at that time, the only time there had been a boiler room playing amapiano was the few that had been done in South Africa. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, there hadn't really been anybody else that had done a boiler room that was playing amapiano. So I'm like, okay, cool. How am I going to make my mark with this thing in this space? And I'd had this dream that I would create this like live performance art experience thing. And I'd imagine that there would be a vocalist who would use their voice as an instrument. So like, when you see Black Motion perform and they would have like the drums and they were in sync in that way, like it was part of the music, but it's like, okay, that person would be like a voice. So we'd create live remixes and renditions of this music. And I'd been listening to her music, and she's very much a experimental artist. She's a sound artist. She's an installation artist. So I was like, I feel like you might be the person that I'm looking for. Let's just go to the studio and figure it out. So we literally, because we were just hanging out. So we went to the studio. I had some songs in mind that I felt like she would really, really like. And we both have that. She partially grew up in New York. So we both have this kind of like similar worldview and way of like approaching music and doing things that are rooted in who you are and where you come from, but connecting to worlds beyond that. And it just happened really naturally. And the moment that we were in the studio and she picked up the mic and I was playing, it just made sense. And I was like, yep, it's you. Then there was about 3 weeks or so until the boiler room was happening. We were just rehearsing. And then we did the boiler room. And then it was like, people were like, it was crazy, the receptions. It was like, okay, this can't be the last time we do this. We got to do this again. Then that day, 2 different people came to us in that boiler room thing and said, I want to book you for my show. I want to book you for my thing. And then we then played like a whole bunch of string of shows after that. So it's like, okay, now we're performing together because people want to see this thing. Then we just kept doing it. Then it's like, okay, how do we innovate this further? I think we have to start making music. Started making music. So it just all went like a domino effect.
Right. I think you skipped over the fact because not only were you playing Boiler Room, you were hosting. So
yes, I also hosted the first.
Look how you just skipped over that. Like, there's a big difference between just playing and hosting. How did you get to the hosting part?
So the hosting, incredible guy. His name's Joe Koch, British London guy. That is a great dot connector, has really been involved in a lot of the things that South African music has done globally. He's been the dot connector, the curator, the consultant. He is that guy. And he was like, yeah, Charisse, we're doing the first boiler room. Amapiano boiler room outside of South Africa. We're doing it in London. Do you want to host it? And I was like, I've never hosted before, but I was like, sure. I'll try. We'll figure it out. And then, yeah, that was literally it.
Very cool. Very cool. I mean, the story has obviously it's a very positive and I don't know what the word is, but basically, it's a story that shows us how much forward movement you've had ever since you sort of started doing these things? Were there any points where there was like difficulties or challenges or backwards movement?
Oh, yeah, a lot. Yeah, down to the very fact of the beginning of realizing that I wanted to break out of, at that time, what was this really like small town scene that amapiano existed in, and a lot of things that I just didn't sit with very well, and wanting to shift into that pivot that we were talking about earlier. Like I obviously spoke about the pivot in terms of like what I did to do it, but not the difficulties that I had in that pivot. And there was a lot of them, like just not really knowing if I was going to have a career, if I said no to certain things, standing up to, you know, things that I was experiencing at the hands of other people that I didn't agree with, and saying like, I don't like that. And maybe worrying that, oh, if I speak up about this thing, I might not get booked about this thing again, because these people have the ability to decide whether I get, and I just always said to myself, whatever career I'm going to have will never be at the expense of my integrity, will never be at the expense of my values, or just the expense of myself. So if it means that it doesn't work out and I've stood my ground, then let it be that. But one thing people will do is respect me. So that is demanding respect first and foremost as a woman, as a Black woman, as somebody who's daring to do stuff that people aren't daring to do, because that upsets people, you know, when you do stuff like that. And then it's like I still manage myself now, but it's then learning things on the fly. Things keep growing and you just have to keep adapting and learning new knowledge. I'm grateful to have met people who really kind of stepped in and supported me in different ways, who were mentors and things like that. But it was a lot of figuring out and making mistakes and just knowing to never make them again, and learning things the hard way. Financially juggling things, trying to figure out how to get from here to there. The industry,
DJing at Boris Johnson's parties and stuff like that.
But yeah, there was a lot of things that like, yeah, I think we'd be able to go more deeply into them if we like, maybe more specifically, but yeah, I don't even know where to start. But there's been a lot over it's 7 years now that I've been DJing. And there's been a lot of obstacles, but I guess
the floor is yours. This is not a radio show. We have no time limits. We've got no breaks to get to. So whatever you want to talk about, do share, like whatever you're comfortable sharing also as well. Yeah. But like,
I'm just even thinking of where to start, really.
I think which is the you mentioned you had your boundaries about integrity. Which is the example where you feel your integrity was tested the most, where it was like, yo, this is a big opportunity, but does this violate my code? What was that?
Well, one, I've always had clear visions of where I felt like, let's say for the genre as a whole to grow, that it became this thing where it was like, all of a sudden these big money people who are seeing it as a cash cow to like, let's quickly just start programming and booking amapiano DJs and paying pennies, or doing it in terrible conditions and treating you like you're supposed to be grateful for it. And it's just like, you think that we're not aware, or that we don't know any better, or that this is not the standard for any type of DJ. But because, okay, it's like, this new African genre, they're just really excited to have the opportunity. And being someone that's saying, no, this is not the standard. This is not how things are done. This is not how you pay people. These are not like the conditions that I'm supposed to be performing under. And I'm grateful for having had previous experience in the spaces where people had mentored me and shown me this is how it's supposed to go. So I was very aware of when it wasn't going the way it was supposed to. But then it's like, because it's like now as the scene was growing, the people that were moving things and able to take you from here to there were the very people that had that money. And so if you were to piss them off, then maybe it might be like, okay. But my thing, I think because I'd leveraged myself so well at the time, I could afford to say no and be like, my thing was like, you'll come back around and you'll book me on terms that make sense for me. Then it was also just like people like, let's say, for example, men being weird, like, reaching out for bookings and stuff, but then using that as a way to like try and get something else. And then if I'm not interested in that, then all of a sudden it's like now the booking's being taken off of the table, or it's like, oh, and just me being like, well, fine, like keep the booking type of thing. So, and me navigating this by myself to the point that I got to a place where I ended up creating a separate email and communicating with people as somebody else, because I was like, actually, if I keep navigating these conversations as me, I'm going to keep having to deal with this disrespect. And I saw the shift the moment that there was this other voice name, which was me the whole time. But it was like, oh, okay, now I'm asking for certain things. It's now no longer an issue. But when you were talking to Charisse, it was like, she'll take it, she'll do it, you know what I mean? So yeah, it was, and that time, I just come out of uni, like I was still trying to figure a whole bunch of things out. Whereas now, as a 27-year-old, it's a whole different ball game. But yeah, like at like 19, 20, dealing with like those type of things, it just wasn't cool.
Yeah. Well, as men, we can only imagine.
It's a sad thing, Phil. Like every time we have a conversation with anyone in entertainment industry, that's always a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. On to happier stories. Evergreen.
Yes.
You did your own vocals?
I did.
Very cool. Tell me a little bit about how you decided to put out, because you were a DJ, right? You're playing music.
Yeah.
Is that like a normal progression that you, from a DJ, you start making your own music?
I guess. I think it's always been understood in the DJ industry that, again, if you want to become the specialist and build the brand, there has to be sonics that are attached to that. There has to be music that's attached to that. It's part of what builds the identity, because then you get booked not just as somebody that plays music, but as an artist. And so, like, even going back to the open format thing, like a lot of the open format DJs that have been able to be successful are attached to music of a particular genre. And so people book them in association with a song. And the metrics of that song can help you, like pitch yourself, propose yourself, those type of things. So it's interesting because music in that way has then become a branding tool for DJs. So it's common practice that DJs have ghost producers. It's common practice that, DJs will start labels, they'll start A&Ring, will start with the premise of having that thing, the music part, attached to their name. And so that was something, you always know that as a DJ, if you want to keep going on that trajectory, at some point you have to have music. But for me, singing wise, my first dream actually ever as a child was to be a singer. And I used to sing in church. I sang in school. I sang in the school choir. But I was always really shy. I became shy at some point, I think I should say. And I just couldn't imagine myself as a performing artist in that way. Like every time I thought about myself touring, and like I just was always overcome with this like fear around it. And like even my parents would say to me, like, you want to do this thing, but like you're always so like you're afraid, you're shy, like, you've got to. So then I just kind of at some point put it to bed, and really focused on writing. And I also became somebody that really started to hone into my own world and create my own worlds, especially when I was writing and stuff. And DJing is what brought me back into this more extroverted personality that I always was, but at some point had lost along the way. And then when I was making the EP, because I'd always used to write songs, like it was always there, but I just thought like, this is just be this thing that I do. I don't know if I'll ever actually do it like that. Then me and Cook Sister made the EP, the Ascension EP, and I really enjoyed that process of being in the studio and making music, but I took on more of like a executive producer role with that. I only sang on one of the songs, and that was a song that it was a Mbira song that I did with two of my other friends as well. And then it came to this new year, which came with a whole new set of obstacles, which was like getting into a place where all of a sudden I had management, and then had to leave that management, and then had my first experience of a record deal and everything that came with that. And just a whole bunch of things came in, and then I had to like pivot myself out of it again somehow. and then did get out of it and like, okay, cool. This feels like another reset yet again. Where am I going now? And I just like, at this point, if you're not using every gift that you have, why? And if you're not trying everything or giving everything, then like you actually can't complain or talk about where you want to be when there is so much of yourself that you're still hiding away from. And that's why I called the EP Evergreen. I just got to a point where I'm like, this is me now finally, like not shying away from things, not being consumed with how people perceive me, with people's thoughts of me, because that's been another thing that I would say I've struggled with on my journey. It's like just being so aware of my surroundings and how people perceive me, and get into a point where I'm just like, I actually refuse to care anymore. So I'm going to do what I feel. And music was an outlet for me to figure out how to just share stuff, write stuff. And because I've been managing myself along this whole point and have had to have this strategic brain to get to where I'm at, I loved having the process of making music, had no agenda. Whereas now I was starting to make strategic decisions as a DJ to get to certain places. Okay, you need to play this type of thing. Okay, how do we pivot to this in the way that a manager would like think? And so I'm like, cool. Music is finally getting back to that place of creativity for creativity's sake. And then Evergreen came out. So, and that's like my commitment to myself from now on, to do everything that comes to me that I feel and not worry about what comes with it.
Okay. So let's also talk about like, because sonically it's a little different. I mean, from the Ascension, which was amapiano, this project, there's a lot more 3-step that I'm getting, a lot more up-tempo vibes. Why that change? And who are you working with on the music?
Yeah. So the Ascension we had amapiano and gqom on the Ascension project. And we'd been playing that same thing I was saying, where I'd been playing everything in the Ascension sets. We would play amapiano, house, and all of that stuff. And then the 3-step project, again, kind of, it wasn't the plan. And there genuinely, with this EP, there was no plan. It was just, I'm going to make what I feel like making. And again, it's kind of in the same way that as I was getting into this thing, DJing, amapiano was happening. As I was coming into a space of finding my voice, 3-step was happening. And I was enjoying the music a lot. And then Kwamzi, who I was working with, had been making 3-step. He'd been known for amapiano, but had been experimenting with 3-step. And then we were just in the studio and I was like, yeah, play me some of the stuff that you've been doing. And then I'm like, let me try something, like see how it goes. And then the first time we tried something, I was like, I really like that. Like, damn, that's a really good song. Then we just did another one and then just did another one. And then it was like, okay, cool. If we're working towards an EP, let's just make it a 3-step project now, because this is how this is going to be cohesive. But still we were bringing in elements of amapiano in there, like the log drum, the production within it. But then I'm also thinking, again, strategically, that was the strategic part, to be fair, where I'm like, I'm playing now a lot more dance festival stages and wider festival stages. And I'm like, I need to also make music that will make sense in the type of sets that I'm playing right now. And 3-step is right now, I guess part of the reason why it was created is like, I guess the bridge between amapiano and like Afrotech and that hybrid, and makes sense, a little more sense to maybe people who still aren't really on the amapiano train. They can get with 3-step a bit more. So it's just yet another like conduit that I really enjoyed making the project out of. So that's how that happened.
Oh, nice. Well, it's sounding dope. I actually like a lot of the songs are vibing. Yeah, they've already been added to the playlist. We'll have that other conversation. A few people that I played it already are really, really, really vibing to it. So it's great to see, especially the 3-step movement. It's coming to Zim. There's a few niche guys doing it, but it hasn't really taken off. But the Afrotech scene here is really blowing up. I'm actually quite surprised. I think the Afrotech scene, especially in Zim, I have a lot of hope and promise for it, because it's building its own subculture from the ground up, as opposed to like amapiano, which is a commercial thing. Like amapiano got so bad, like some clubs even, like there was a time they banned, like Pablo's banned amapiano for a while. They were like,
why is that?
Because DJs just getting lazy with it, and it was so popular. Right. People just go to the most common denominator of songs.
And also, it was you know what? not to say that people were tired of it. They were not. There's people love amapiano, but everywhere you go is amapiano. So it almost became so it became almost a competitive edge to be like, oh, we don't play amapiano here, and people were like, oh, okay, you know what I'm saying? But it's
So
it's a whole thing. But Afrotech,
it's amazing to see someone like Night Freak. He's like one of the biggest exports that I've seen come out of Zimbabwe, and he's really killing it. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
No, there's a bunch of guys doing their thing. Night Freak, Sam Cosmic,
Alu.
Yeah, I mean, well, thanks, Jack. You know, I mean, we don't want to toot our own horns or anything, you know. But, yeah. But there's a solid scene developing out here right now. It's beautiful.
Nice.
Very cool. No, it's cool. It's cool to see it go. Okay, so Sherry, we've heard your story. Here we are now. Your EP is out. Came out 3 months ago. Evergreen. Everyone go check it out. 4 songs on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very cool songs. I think my favorite is Morning Sun, followed by Ani Safun.
Thank you.
Professional advice from a DJ who's somewhat made it. I know you've got bigger plans, and you've got, but here you are, you're playing international festivals and huge stages, and you've got an event, and right. So, professional advice: give the audiences what they want, or train them on new sounds.
Find the balance. I think that's what I would say. Find the balance. So I have a formula when I'm playing to audiences I open. It's like a bit of a sandwich formula that works for me every time. And so I'll start with wherever I start. So it's like something familiar, something unfamiliar, something familiar. Less like one after the other, but let's say if it's an hour set, that maybe like within it, it's like, okay, maybe we'll have 15 minutes and then I'll play a remix of something you know and you really like and you're familiar. I'll get you comfortable. Then when I can see you're comfortable and you're in a groove and you feel like, okay, you're really enjoying something because you know it, then I'll quickly shift you over to something that you're not so familiar with. But before you get too bored of it, I'll bring you back to something that I know that you're comfortable with and you like. And so within that, I'm constantly like moving you into the places that I want you to go, so that by the end, you trust me enough to allow me to take you somewhere else because I've given you enough of what you like in between the bits that I like. So that's genuinely my formula. So I have a folder, like a playlist in my USB that is my crowd pleaser remix folder. And so whenever I need to just draw for something to get the crowd to come back into the room, I'll draw for something from there. Then I'll play wherever I want to play. And when I need to just come back, that's like my sandwich formula. So finding the balance.
Nice. Yeah, but before we think, I've now just, there's a flood of bad DJ questions have come into my mind, and I want to put you on the spot.
Okay.
First question. What's up with your UK DJ speeding up pianos? What's going on over there? Why do you
So this is the chat we were having earlier, right? Where it's like, UK dance music is on 125 BPM. And so, and a lot of, it's very normal in the UK for people to play. So that whole way of like, you see how amapiano or Afrotech, whatever is played, where it's like you coast and you need to go on this journey. UK dance floors, unless it's specifically a niche of like house, if it's not that, it's always going to have that multiple things because people, so there's always like a dancehall section or whatever section. So when it's being played amongst what people associated with, which would be like UK funky and whatever in the house spaces, in their minds, it's like, okay, I'm only peppering this in my set. So I can't bring the rest of my music down to a 113 BPM. So I'm going to bring this up so I can play it within the thing. And I think because if as a DJ, you haven't really been immersed in the culture where this music comes from or experienced it the way it's supposed to be heard, and you're just associating it with what you're used to, you don't hear how off it is. Like, I think genuinely people don't hear how off it sounds, because to them it's like, well, everything else I'm playing is here, and because you're not listening to the lyrics or what's being said, you're not realizing how like now the words are running really, really fast because the language is not even something that I'm listening to. So I'm really just listening to the beat and the vibes, and the beat is great at this 125 for me. And so
I'm also not gonna call out a region, but there's a region of African DJs. I'm calling out, but they're some of the worst offenders.
Yeah, I know.
Bad.
Yeah,
and it's not even with house though.
Even with the Afrobeat, that one is always confusing.
Small does not make sense.
But that one has always confused me because Afrobeats is not fast. Like a lot of the time, the BPM is slower than amapiano. So I've always found that one intriguing.
I think they're double timing it, so they try to do like 70 to 140 BPM. It's just it's just lazy.
Yeah.
So I want to just play a few snippets of some of the Afro tech songs that are coming in to maybe include in your set. I just want to hear your quick reactions.
You do.
Yeah. So
I hope you fix your audio,
Samuel Cosmic, for example.
Okay.
I hope you fixed your audio, Dan, because normally you can't hear your side.
Here you go. All right. Here you go. Here's the new Samuel Cosmic featuring Stevo Atambire, and it's called Mogre. Check it out. Make it louder. Y'all can hear that? I'm just playing a snippet. I know it doesn't encapsulate the whole feeling of the song, but what do you think?
I like it. And I like it. One of the things that whenever I do have conversations with people about like the future of music coming from Zimbabwe, I'm like really keen for the birth of genres that really speak to the musical history and the fabric of the country, but are future facing. I think a lot of what I hear is the Zimbabwean or the Shona version of this. You know what I mean? And so that part comes more so in the lyrics or the content, but sonically it is quite similar to what's happening around. And when I'm listening to this, it's like that guitar is very distinct to me, and I associate that with the musical history of Zim, but it's been incorporated skillfully in a way that like I could associate that sound as a house music sound that is coming out of Zimbabwe, and that kind of can begin to define something. And that's the type of stuff that it excites me with music in general. And even going back to what we talked about with amapiano, why something like that was able to do so well, because it's distinctly from a place, but is unlike anything that we've heard. And then that creates ground for people to grow and build from, and for more and more to be birthed. So I like that. It's cool.
Very cool. One last one. So this is Ryan Synth from Bulawayo, and he's done a remix of a Zim song. Check it out. Okay. I know there's more to it.
So this is a remix of what song, sorry?
So it's a song called Sungano. So it's like a sort of hip hop /
Yeah.
Afro beats vibe. And then he obviously made this like amapiano remix of it. This just came out. So we were discussing it like at the radio station. We're like, yo, is this dope? I think it's dope. You know, and I was keen to hear what people were thinking. So what do you think?
Got that kind of like pop vibe. And then you can definitely hear the Afrobeat as well in that vocal. But yeah, it's nice, it's smooth. The production is really nice too. And it's an easy listen. Like it could appeal to a lot of people.
Nah, we'll send you stuff. We'll send you some stuff.
And please, me guys, I like to listen to music, eh? And I feel like I definitely feel like there's a lot more I need to do to connect with what's happening in Zim musically. So please do.
Dope.
We'll do.
Charisse is a real one. I remember the times like we used to have these little rooms and we play music, and I'd always find like some exclusive stuff. And there was this time I had like an exclusive opposite thing, just like, Phil, no, what is that? And I was playing. No, Phil, what is that? What is this? But yeah, we'll shoot you some DJ packs. But if people have listened to the podcast, they want to follow you, they want to listen to your music, where should they go and how should they spell your name?
My name is Charisse C, CHARISSE, and then C, my initial, and you'll find me absolutely anywhere with that. My music is on all streaming platforms. I have a YouTube channel. That's my Instagram, my TikTok, my Twitter. You'll find me everywhere as Charisse C.
And you'll catch Ever in the clubs. Afro Nation. Nothing. You know what I'm saying? Wait a minute.
Which
nothing to her. You know what I'm saying?
Which song of yours should we close out with, Charisse?
Let's do Morning Sun, since you said that was your favorite.
Dope.
Right, so we're gonna end this episode with something coming through from Charisse C's debut solo EP. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, because you were working with Kwame. Yeah, but it is a solo EP, right? And plus, you were doing vocals and everything. We're gonna play Morning Sun, and we want to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for coming to the pod.
Thank you for having me.
Sitting with us. Yeah,
I really enjoyed this conversation.
Cool story that we got to hear of yours, and of course, I think for any budding DJs out there, hit her up in the DMs. She is now honor bound to respond to you. All right. On that note, we'll end this podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. TwoBrokeTwimbos.com/donate if you want to send money to Charisse. We'll make sure it gets to her. Don't worry.
No,
definitely.
Shout out to our patrons. We actually do have a bunch of new patrons, but I'll give them a proper shout out next week on our talking episode. Once we figure out how to unlock our funds, but that's a story for another day. But shout out to the people that keep the podcast alive. As you guys can tell, we don't have any ads, and we try and filter out, the riffraff ads, and that is because we have an amazing crew of people keeping us afloat, helping us pay the bills out here, and helping us get equipment. So shout out to y'all and all of yours, you guys in the unit of K's. Whenever you see Charisse's name, please support her. She's obviously going to be in SA soon. We'll see if she can come to Zim. Hoping and praying she'll make that trip. It'll be good to see her out here. And also we didn't even tap into your Zim roots and all that. You know what? We'll have a part two. We'll have a part two. We'll tap into your Zim roots and all that.
Let's do that.
And all that. But yeah, it was lovely having you.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, we're going to end this podcast. Don't forget to support, like we said, TwoBrokeTwimbos.com/donate, like, subscribe, do all those things that keep us going. And we'll catch you in the next one. We out.
Let's go.
Wrapped up, caught up, dreaming, woke up, choked up, your love, falling, won't stop. Wrapped up, caught up, dreaming, woke up, choked up, your love, falling, won't stop. Close my eyes and wake up in the morning to the sun. Holding on to light until I'm sure you are the one. Letting go my prize no more, our spirits overcome. Close my eyes and wake up in the morning to the sun. Holding on to light until I'm sure you are the one. Letting go my prize no more, our spirits overcome.